Welcome to Betrayal Trauma Recovery, BTR.org. I'm Anne. I'm sure you remember what it was like when you were searching for help, maybe for your husband, hoping to find the right program or therapist. That's why I started podcasting. I supported my husband through 7 years of pornography addiction recovery, and not one therapist during that time told me I was experiencing emotional and psychological abuse and sexual coercion. I didn't want any other woman on the planet to be in the dark. If you're like the majority of my listeners, you're experiencing the type of abuse that's invisible and difficult to wrap your head around. Your husband is using porn or having affairs or lying to you, and you're getting the same bad advice about how to improve communication or your relationship. If you need support from women who totally understand, check out our daily group session schedule at btr.org/group. We'd love to see you in a session today. One simple, anonymous way to help spread the word is to click, follow, or subscribe to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery podcast on your favorite podcasting app. While you're there, every 5-star rating helps make this podcast more visible and will help save other women from getting the wrong kind of help, like a couple program that will make this type of abuse worse. For those of you who follow or subscribe to this podcast, thank you so much. Your support means so much to me. I've posted the music video we're going to talk about today on our YouTube channel. So after you've listened to this episode, find our channel on YouTube, search Betrayal Trauma Recovery or BTR.org, look for our logo and colors. This music video really captures the emotions that women go through when they're experiencing betrayal trauma. So many women feel this way. They're going to relate when they see it. Once you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's incredible. And I really want to get this video out there. So maybe with your help, we can get it to go viral. Anything you can do to help this go viral would be greatly appreciated. So go to YouTube and watch it, like it, share it, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Ralynne Riggs is the woman who created this music video. She was born and raised in Chandler, Arizona. Her passions include singing, dancing, acting, horseback riding, baking, making movies, as you will see when you go to our YouTube channel to see this, and being the favorite aunt to her beautiful nieces and nephews. Since she was young, her greatest passion has been the stage. She received her bachelor's degree in vocal performance from Brigham Young University and has performed as a leading soprano throughout the U.S., China, and Austria. After graduation, she became a lead singer for Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, and on a Disney cruise line. Ralynne has learned the importance of hard work, confidence, self-worth, and perseverance in bringing one's dreams to life. Her mantra is, "You can do anything if you just do it." Welcome, Ralynne.
Thank you so much, Anne.
So I'm hoping by this time people have paused this podcast. They've gone to our YouTube channel. They have seen this amazing music video that you made. I'm hoping they have shared it. I'm hoping they commented. I'm hoping that they're letting their friends and family know about this incredible video, and also that they're understanding that this can help their friends and family and other people understand the pain that victims go through. So you were prompted to create this video to help educate people about betrayal trauma. But before we get to that and what happened with that, let's start with your own personal story. Did you know about your husband's pornography addiction before you were married?
I did know a little bit about his addiction before we were married. There was one night when, after things had gotten more serious in our dating, that he approached me and said there was some things in his past that he wanted to make me aware of so that I truly knew everything about him. And he shared with me that he struggled with pornography throughout his teenage years. But, I was kind of naive to the problem, to how serious a porn addiction could be and what that all entailed. And I didn't know the right questions to ask. And I was just thinking, well, no one's perfect. And I asked him if he had struggled with it since, because he said he had cleaned up and was able to serve a 2-year mission and didn't struggle with it at all and hadn't struggled since he'd been home. So to me, I thought, well, that was brave of him to bring that up with me and share it with me. And I believed him, and I didn't know what else to ask about it.
Even if you had, because we know that pornography users often lie about their porn use, or abusive men often lie and manipulate. So even if you had known the so-called right questions to ask, that likely would not have helped you. What we find helps women more, and you know this now, is what behaviors to look for. And you also didn't know that at the time. What was your reaction to his disclosure about viewing and acting out with porn after you were married?
Well, it was about 5 months into our marriage that he called me very distraught and crying and telling me that I needed to come home because he needed me. I didn't know what was going on. And then when I got home, he shared with me that he had viewed and acted out to porn. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, so all of a sudden, after 4 or 5 years of not viewing porn, you've gone back to it. Why? So, as a new bride, I, of course, was sitting there in utter shock and feeling immediately like it had something to do with me. Was I not enough? Why would he go back to this now? And I mostly was just in shock and disbelief. But he also seemed so sorry when he told me that my immediate reaction was, I love you. Thank you for being honest with me and telling me about it. And let's go meet with our bishop and get a therapist and start working through this together. I literally told him, use me when you need to use me. Let's be open and get through this together. Use me as far as if you're feeling tempted, talk to me. Tell me when you've done it. Let's be open and honest. And I think a part of me was like, hey, well, if you're feeling the urge, hello, we're married. Let me know. Like, why would you turn to that instead of turning to me, your wife? I know now that those were a lot of the wrong things to do.
I'm guessing you didn't understand the emotional abuse that you had been subjected to?
Not at all.
And I'm guessing you also didn't understand boundaries or keeping yourself safe.
I knew nothing about that because it did not register in my mind that anything had been done to me at that point.
Yeah, you're just thinking, oh, this is too bad for him, but I can help him through it. Kind of like he got a broken finger or something. Describe what happened in your personal life during this time. And what were your days like as you tried to, quote unquote, help your husband work through his addiction?
They were pretty awful. For me, long story short, I kind of took on the problem. I'm a go-getter in all of the things that I do in life. And so it's not surprising to me that I took everything on my shoulders. I became very worried about doing check-ins with him. And I was even worried when I talked to him if he was telling me the truth or not. Setting up appointments for therapy. We went together and we went separately. Then I was told about addiction recovery programs and started going to those. But as we went, there was no really desire or effort coming from him to want to go. It was like I was dragging him along, which made things worse because then I felt like I was fighting harder for something that wasn't even really my issue to begin with, but it was becoming my issue and it was consuming my days. And I actually was let go from my job in that meeting with my boss and my office manager. My boss said ultimately he was very sorry, but I was just so sad all the time and he had to let me go. And that was a huge wake-up call for me because that is not a way I've ever been described in my life. Usually people associate me with words like, you're so bubbly and so happy and so outgoing. To see that I had become this sad person that couldn't even hide my sadness and just everything was spiraling the other way and affecting my life in a very negative way was a huge wake-up call for me. And I became this kind of introverted ball of depression and tears and anxiety. I began to have panic attacks, which I had never experienced before in my life. And it just seemed like I could not succeed anywhere. I couldn't succeed at my jobs and I couldn't succeed at home. And everything was just so dark and hopeless during that time. I lost myself completely. I was just trying to survive each day. I became very numb through that whole process.
So you did not realize at that time that you were a victim of abuse. You didn't realize that the reason this was happening was because you were a victim of abuse. But you did start to realize that you were suffering from betrayal trauma. How did you realize the betrayal trauma piece?
My ecclesiastical leader had been told by my husband that I was depressed because that's what my husband was blaming things on. I was suffering from depression. So my ecclesiastical leader met with me and I said, I'm not depressed. This is what's going on. I found BTR.org. I said, what's betrayal trauma? I had no idea what that was at the time. She did expound further and mention the different types of abuse that were going on: emotional, spiritual, mental, all of those things. And I just listened to her say that in disbelief. But as she said it, it kind of dawned on me, of course, that makes complete sense. But as most people, when I think of abuse, I don't think of all the emotional types of abuse. And I especially wouldn't associate that with my spouse. I would never think my spouse would be someone who would be emotionally, spiritually, mentally abusing me. But unfortunately, that was the reality. And it wasn't until I spoke with her that all those light bulbs went on and I realized how bad the situation was.
Yeah, it's a lot worse than people imagine. I think it's really interesting how victims don't recognize how bad the situation is, because everyone listening to this podcast has been through it. Everyone can empathize with you and be like, yeah, that's exactly how it was for me. I think that's one thing that we need to educate people about in regard to abuse, is that victims don't always know what is happening to them. What is the most difficult thing you realized throughout this experience?
The most difficult thing that I realized throughout this experience was the fact that I could not save my husband. No matter how many times I went to therapy or how many times I prayed or how many times I took him to a recovery class, no matter how hard I tried to save our marriage and help him, I was powerless. I had to learn that his actions were separate from mine, that they did not have anything to do with me, even though that's the hardest thing I think for a spouse to believe, but that they didn't have anything to do with me and that it was all his choices, his actions. There was absolutely nothing I could do about it.
When women find out that they're being abused, they think one of their options is to help him stop being abusive. And that's never an option because it never works. So there's either he just stops on his own somehow and then you're safe, or you have to start setting boundaries. Speaking of boundaries, knowing what you know now, if you could go back in time and do it over again, which none of us can, but we've all thought this, what would you have done differently? And this question isn't meant to like, oh, what should you have done? But to educate women who are currently in this situation to help them know what to do now.
Yes. Well, first of all, I would have loved to know right away it's not my fault and I can't blame myself or take it on my shoulders. So knowing that, I would definitely take that off of myself right away. Secondly, would have done a lot more research before finding a therapist that we met with, because we just went with someone recommended to us by our ecclesiastical leader who was not qualified in any way regarding abuse. I also would be more vocal about it, because the decision that we made when it first happened was that we didn't want to share with our families what was going on, because we didn't want either person to be viewed in a bad light or gossiped about amongst our family. And we decided we could get through it together on our own with each other and with our therapist. And I think that was also a huge mistake, because it allowed him to continue to get away with not having to own up to his addiction and the problems that were happening within our marriage because of it. And I think if we would have involved our parents, at least as a support, it maybe would have helped him to be more accountable right away, rather than feeling like he could keep hiding it.
Maybe. Let me put your heart at ease in that regard. I told everyone. My ex didn't want me to, but then it ended up getting used against me by my in-laws. So it can go either way. I'm not saying people should or should not tell other people, but just know that both of them have risks. But I do think victims need a safe support network, and you don't know if someone is safe if you don't try. So even if you try and it doesn't go so well with a particular person, your mother-in-law, a father-in-law, even your own parents, at least you tried to see if they were safe, which you won't know if you don't try. So try. And then if they are unsafe, then you can always set boundaries or pull back later. But building a really strong support network is really important.
Yes. And with setting boundaries, again, that was a concept that I didn't know about and was brought my knowledge way too far into the issue. So if I knew about that and went through something like this again or could do it again, I immediately would have started setting safe boundaries and sticking to them, because trying to do that 2 years into problems already going on just immediately turned into him feeling like, what, you're going to punish me now? As if I already don't feel bad enough, you're going to punish me now. And he just reacted in the way that it was like he was being a child and he was being punished. And how could I do that to him when he was already hurting so much? So boundaries never worked for us.
Well, they worked for you. They worked for you. They didn't work for your abuser. And then he was trying to get around the abuse by saying that stuff, but that was meant to manipulate you to drop your boundaries. That was a calculated way of trying to convince you, gaslight you, manipulate you, lie to you, so you would drop the boundaries. So, did your boundaries work for you? Yes. So when people say boundaries didn't work for us, I always want to tell women, oh, no. They're always going to work for you. They might not work for your abuser, but great. If they don't work for your abuser, then yay. If he's mad because he can't abuse you anymore, fantastic. You've done yourself a favor. And if someone is abusive and you set a boundary, their abuse will escalate. So they'll manipulate you more. They'll get more angry. If they're not abusive and you set a boundary, things will slowly get better over time. So setting a boundary is always going to help victims know their baseline safety situation, which is good. Okay, so let's talk about this music video. Again, I'm going to pause here one more time. Go to our YouTube channel, Betrayal Trauma Recovery. Watch this video. We just posted it. Please subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends and family, share it on Facebook, share it everywhere you can. Please help us get this video out so other people can understand the pain and suffering that women go through, because Ralynne has done such a good job of illustrating this. So I got an email a while ago that said, hey, I'm Ralynne Riggs. I'm a singer. I want to create a music video. And we started talking and became friends. I was so inspired by you that you had this prompting to create a music video, and then you put your whole heart and soul into it and made this incredible illustration of pain and also hope. So please tell our audience what inspired you to create it.
Well, this song became a song that was very important to me as part of my just survival and healing when I was in the middle of all of this experience. And it was just on my mind for a while. I'm not going to lie, it had been on my mind for about a year and a half. I waited too long to make this, but the song gave words to my pain and exactly what I was feeling so poignantly that it was such a strength to me. Music has done that for me through my whole life. And I just thought, I wonder if I should make a music video to do this and just spread awareness about what happens to the spouse in this situation, because there's so much help out there and support for the addict or for the abuser. And I feel like, and in my personal experience and in my experiences with other women that I met in support groups, that we often are the ones who are pushed aside while we are just asked to hold on a little longer while our husband gets help. And we're left with all of these emotions and this trauma, and we don't know what to do with it. So I wanted to make this video in hopes that if there is another woman out there on the other end of the computer screen going through what I was going through, or who has been through it, and they're out there searching for support or help or to know what's happening to them, I wanted to make this for them, because the faster they can know about it, the faster they can find the help and the resources for healing, the better. I'm grateful that I found BTR.org. It has been such a saving grace. I know there's thousands of women out there going through this, and I don't want them to suffer or feel hopeless any longer than they need to. And so that was my hope. My simple hope in doing this is that even if one woman out there going through what I went through watches this and then finds a community of love and support to help her heal, it'll have been worth it.
You said something that's really interesting. You said that women are just asked to wait, like just hold on a little bit longer. But what they're not told is you may not be safe while you're waiting. They're not told, how can we help create a seriously safe environment for you where you can wait from a safe distance? And I think that is one reason why the trauma is so bad. Even with professionals or church leaders or other people, we weren't sort of like cocooned in a safe place during the waiting period. And in fact, the abuse escalates and escalates and escalates. And we have been encouraged to, quote unquote, do our part or be supportive when really we've just been abused that whole time and it hasn't stopped the abuse. This video, it really hit home the abuse that we experience during that time. I love that end where she just takes another woman's hand and that network of support is waiting for women all over the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be BTR. It could be friends at work. It could be anyone who can reach out and buoy you up and help you. Your video just showed that so well.
Thank you so much. I 100% agree with you. But what about you in the meantime? How do you remain safe? None of that was ever addressed with me. And I remember asking the third time I was asked to hold on and keep waiting. I remember my reply was, why would I keep fighting and holding on for something that makes me so miserable and is so abusive? And there was no answer really for me from that person.
So you ended up getting divorced.
Yes.
Do you feel like creating this video has helped you heal?
I do. The way I was raised and what I've been taught in my faith is that everything happens for a reason. And through all of this, I've often struggled because I've sat there and gone, what have I done to deserve this? I've been a loyal, faithful wife. I've stayed true. I've tried to love unconditionally and endlessly, and this is what I get for it. How is this fair? That's been something I've really struggled with, but I've tried to have the outlook of how is this making me stronger and what's the purpose? And that's something that I've been so grateful with making this video, because as soon as I started taking action and making plans to have this made and reaching out to people and getting volunteers to be in it and just producing it, there were so many little miracles that immediately fell into place. I could not deny that God's hand was in it. And I felt so happy and good knowing I was doing something that He was guiding me to do and would hopefully lead to helping a lot of women. And as we finished making the video, I just thought, I'm so grateful. This is the first time I've been able to make beauty out of these ashes, make a little bit of sense or have some good come from the worst years of my life ever. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I followed the prompting and have made it. And I only hope that it does what I've been hoping that it would do and help so many women. It has definitely helped me heal.
Our hope, Rylan's and mine, is that we can get this video to go viral. And the reason we want it to do that is because so many women are in this situation and they don't understand what is happening to them. It's very important that we help women get educated about abuse, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what to look for if your husband says he's in quote unquote recovery from pornography addiction, and how to tell the difference between someone who is just grooming you and saying they're in recovery and going through the motions and someone who is genuinely a safe person. They're two completely different things. So again, please go to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Watch it, share it. I am so grateful for Ralynne for following these promptings to help women throughout the world find peace, to help them know that they are not alone. So even if it doesn't go viral, if some women find out about BTR who have not found out about it before, or if some women watch this video and realize, wait a minute, this is what has been happening to me, then it will have been a success. So thank you, Ralynne, for coming on today's episode to talk about your experience.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share my story. And thank you to everyone who's watched so far. And I hope it helps you.
Again, you can find this video on our YouTube channel, Betrayal Trauma Recovery. If this podcast is helpful to you, please help us reach other women by following or subscribing and giving us a 5-star rating. Thank you for helping other women find us. If you've already purchased a copy of my book, Trauma Mama, Husband Drama, please circle back and give it a 5-star rating. A lot of women are searching for books about betrayal trauma on Amazon, and rating Trauma Mama will help them find this podcast, which is free to everyone. Your donations keep this podcast going. Go to our website, btr.org, scroll to the bottom, click on Support the BTR Podcast. And until next week, stay safe out there.